thing, Chad. You will never get work as a cue card giver after that. Just messing up my nose.
Good evening once again, everybody. Welcome back to the fourth of our series of preseason podcasts. This evening we are previewing the SEC, the very powerful conference that put in a grand total of 3 teams into the field last year. Only 2 even in the round of 64. Vanderbilt losing in the first 4. Only 1 in the Sweet 16 after Kentucky got knocked out, and that was it. When A&M got knocked out of the Sweet 16, the SEC's season was done. And this despite the fact that the SEC league office came in and said, we want to upgrade our schedules, we want to get more teams in, we want to do everything right. You see big-name head coaches coming in here, the Rick Barnes, the Ben Howlands, Bryce Drew, Avery Johnson, and more. David, something wrong with the SEC?
I don't. Yeah. Well, other than not being good, not really. I don't think there's anything wrong. But it did kind of follow a year where they did have a lot of success. I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was 6 or 7 that got in from the 14-15 season. So it took a major plunge last year. You had South Carolina right on the bubble. I think they should have been selected ahead of Vanderbilt, certainly. I didn't think either one of them should have been in, honestly, but given the choice between the two, I thought South Carolina had a good year. And but yeah, it was just kind of surprising that it struggled as much as it did after having a good year the year before.
Well, the year before, the year before there, David, it was 5 teams.
It was 5,
and 3 of them were an LSU 9 seed, a Georgia 10 seed, and an Ole Miss 11 seed. So it wasn't exactly. Yeah, you had Kentucky and you had Arkansas with great years that year, but then you follow that up with a 4, 3, and 11. This is, sorry, John, you wanted to make a comment about this, but I just think this is not what the SEC wants to be seeing.
Yeah, but my comment was if it weren't for a 3 Mile Island meltdown by Northern Iowa, no one from the SEC would have even gotten to the Sweet 16 last year.
And that's a good point.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That A&M was a miracle comeback, and Joby, I know you've got some SEC ties. Do you have thoughts on this issue?
Well, you heard me on a prior podcast so eloquently say this. They suck. I mean, let's just be blunt. This conference, and we'll get to it. Beyond. I mean, there's a blue blood program at the top who doesn't suck. But besides that, it's just a tire fire. I mean, it's a mess. And there's enough, football is bringing in enough money that should be able to go into basketball programs to make nice facilities, to hire big coaches, as you've already laid out. It should be better than this. There should be more Florida's under Donovan, for lack of a better word, in this conference. And there's not. I don't know what the reason is. I think it's a temporary thing, but it does exist right now. And we cannot ignore it. When we get to prediction time, it'll be fun.
Let's not forget the Pac-12 was also in a similar down cycle a couple of years ago.
Well, but
same situation,
and that's a good point. But the SEC had 3 teams in the 2014 tournament, 3 teams in the 2013 tournament, 4 teams in 2012. This is a 5 or 6 year cycle now. And Matt, we are seeing the big name coaches. What else is the SEC missing to become a 6-7 bid league?
I think at this point, actually, it's just time. It's like they're not going to be that this year. Sorry, spoiler alert for the end of the show. They're not going to be a 6-bid league this year. But I think in a year or two, you're seeing Mississippi State's going to be, pretty close this year. And then they actually have another great recruit coming in, Nick Weatherspoon. And then Auburn definitely has a great class coming in, and Alabama looks on the verge of it. So you had those 3, and they're trending upward. And then obviously Kentucky will be Kentucky. In that, I think Georgia under Mark Fox is starting to settle into being a pretty good, consistent program that they might not have the firepower of some of these other teams, but Mark Fox is an excellent coach, and he'll coach him up to be pretty respectable. And then all of a sudden you'll see, maybe like Rick Barnes at Tennessee, you'll start seeing, I think, back to being a 6-7 bid league in a year or two.
Okay. Well, let's get right into some of these teams now. And Joby, let me start with you. Jamal Murray, Tyler Eulis, Alex Poitras, Scala Bissiere, Marcus Lee are all gone from Kentucky, so we're going to write them off, right?
I mean, there's a reason why those guys leave and are replaced by guys who will become household names and will leave as well. I mean, it is the ultimate one and done program, and Calipari does not disappoint this year again. And given the preview that Matt has given, that I've hinted at, the biggest problem Kentucky's going to have is, are they going to be able to pile up quality wins in conference? And the answer is no, because there's no quality to be had. And they were smart enough to schedule out of conference strong, whether it's your Kansas game or your annual Louisville game. Good for them. They're smart. Cal is smart. The one risk you have when you're relying on new faces is that, do you start off the season a little weak, or the new faces don't show up the way you thought, like they did when Kentucky was an 8 seed? Forget the fact they made a run to the finals, but they were a legit 8 seed, and if they didn't have Kentucky on their uniforms, it might have been a team wearing very dark uniforms.
I'm also going to go out on the limb and guess that the guy named Calipari that's a freshman is not going to be among the one and dones this year.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have five stars. I mean, that's just remarkable. Five stars. What? There's 25 stars in a year.
Yeah, let's run through these guys: Wenyen Gabriel, Sacha Kilia-Jones, Darren Fox, Malik Monk, and Bam Adebayo may be the best of this entire group here.
Now, I know Kilia-Jones because he was a Virginia commit who decommitted. He's good. He's the weakest of the group, but this is the ultimate. I will say he was a 4-star guy magically when he was a Virginia commit, and he became a 5-star when he became a Kentucky commit. So I will say there's a little bit of inflation there. But yeah, Fox, Adebayo is going to be just a monster inside. It's going to be fun to watch these young kids and see if they develop into the 8 seed or the 1 seed.
And Matt, how good is this Kentucky team going to be, in your opinion? I mean, in terms of, let's not talk, are they going to win the SEC? Let's talk, what type of seed are they going to take? Are they a Final Four team?
I'm thinking a 2 seed just because I think this is where the SEC might come back and hurt them. But I think SEC play, they'll go 16-2, 15-3, something along those lines. I think come tournament time, I'm going to say Elite 8. And that just one. If Isaiah Briscoe, in theory, played more like, say, Deron Lamb, more of a shooter, defender, to where, like, if his skills better complemented these incoming freshmen, I would say Final Four. I think for them to be a Final Four, they either need Derek Willis, or if you want to go a little bit off the radar, a former JUCO All-American named Michael Mulder. Did not crack the rotation last year, but it's supposed to be a very good perimeter shooter, and I think what might be needed to complement the slashing of Fox, the inside ability of Adebayo, kind of
the shooting of Gabriel could come along too. We haven't talked about him. He was one of the most impressive kids on the circuit I saw.
Well, David, let me ask you about this Kentucky team now. Do you agree with Matt that this is maybe just a 2 seed Elite 8, or do you want to start printing up those 40-0 jerseys?
I'm more along the lines of Matt, just because when you look at some of the teams that we've already talked about in other podcasts, I don't think they're as good as Duke. I don't think they're as good as Virginia. I don't think they're as good as North Carolina. So if they played in the ACC, I'd have them coming in 4th, just in that conference. I don't know. Like, can they get to the Final Four? Sure. I've been doing a study, and you know, when a team wins in the Elite 8, there's a 100% chance that they make the Final Four. So if Kentucky can get to the Elite 8 and win, yeah, they can make the Final Four. I don't think I would pick them as a number 1 seed going in. I don't think they're one of the 4 best teams, but yeah, they're good enough to get there. They certainly are. And I think they're going to run roughshod over the SEC. I realize that they always slip up, and not always, but typically you'll see them drop a game or 2 or 3 on the road that you expect them to win, largely because they're always a showcase game, maybe the biggest game on the team's schedule every time they go on the road. And just when everyone's gunning for you like that, you're going to drop a couple of them. Lost at Auburn last year, lost a couple others that you would have expected them to win. But and I think we're going to see that again this year too from them.
Well, John, you're our schedule guru. What does it look like in terms of where are they going to get the wins out of conference to make up for the SEC schedule?
Well, they've certainly got their opportunities, even though they're really not in any exempt tournament. They're going to have the opener, well, not the opener, but the ESPN tip-off marathon opener against Michigan State at Madison Square Garden. They're also going to play UCLA at home. They're going to play North Carolina on a neutral floor. They go to Louisville after Christmas, and then they'll have the game against Kansas as part of the SEC Big 12 Challenge.
That game's not after Christmas. It's not the Saturday after Christmas. Louisville, Kentucky.
It's before Christmas.
What happened? What?
And what we're mentioning about giving them a chance to get going, other than that Michigan State game early, the other 6 first games, it's Stephen F. Austin, Canisius, Duquesne, Cleveland State, Tennessee Martin. I think that scheduling like that gives Coach Cal a chance to get these kids blended in while not facing that until they start facing the tough competition. I can't complain about it too much when you're playing 5, bunch of one and doneers.
Yeah, and who's their SEC Big 12 Challenge opponent?
Kansas.
What?
As it should be.
What? No, it should not be. It should not be. That should be Missouri's. No, it should not be. That's not who it should be. It should be Border War.
Well, Matt, let me go back to you and beyond Kentucky, kind of like when we had our Big 12 podcast and we kind of said it was Kansas and then we talk about everybody else. I think we're doing the same thing here in the SEC. So when we talk about everybody else, who is the second best team here?
I'm actually saying the Georgia Bulldogs.
The Georgia Bulldogs.
Mark Fox, a really good coach, and then a theme of mine I like when you have a good point guard and a good big man. You got the point guard in J.J. Frazier, you got the good big man in Deontay Monin, and you got some other parts around them, including, I think, a couple of really good freshmen relative to the quality of recruit Fox and Early sides, and Tyree Crump and Jordan Harris, both 4-star level kids. I think that program, the way Fox develops talent, could be all SEC by the time they graduate.
And I think Juwan Parker's back healthy again as well, is he not?
Yes, I do believe I do. Took a medical register last year, and I believe he's healthy this year.
Right. David, you've had issues with Georgia in the past. Are you going to jump on the bandwagon with Matt here and say that this is the year for the Bulldogs?
I don't know if I'm all the way there to say I don't know if they're the second best team in the conference, but I do think they're going to be much improved, and I could see them at least making a run for the NCAA tournament. A team I like that I think is going to be good this year. I don't know if it feels weird picking this team second because it just seems like too much of a jump, but I could see them being an NCAA tournament team. Most people would disagree with me, but that's okay. People are allowed to be wrong, and they are if you disagree with me. I like this Alabama team. I thought Avery Johnson did a fantastic job with them. They lost a key player very early in the year. After kind of being up and down, they had some blowout losses, but they had some real quality wins. Despite not having Ingram for most of the season, they still looked pretty good. I was really impressed, and they should be even better this year. If they improve as much from the last year to this year as they did from 2 years ago to last year, they could make the NCAA tournament. I think they're kind of my dark horse team, not just in the SEC, but around the nation as well. I like this Crimson Tide team.
Well, Joby, let me ask you about them because I know you've got some Alabama ties as well. And I agree with David about Avery Johnson and the way what he did as a coach last year. I thought I was very impressed. But you only have 2 starters back, although Ingram is healthy again. And I don't really see the star power there. I think that Avery Johnson's going to kind of have to cobble pieces together to make this team win. Do you think David's right, or?
I think you're right. And because they made their run. Well, if you remember their season from last year, they gave us hope at one point that they were going to make that run to the tournament, and then I think they lost 6 of their last 7 or 6 of their last 8, and just fell apart. And then they lose a 17-point a game scorer who was the key to them. I mean, he was the guy who basically was their, go-to. They don't backfill tremendously, but Avery Johnson, I think, is legit as a coach on the X's and O's. I think he will get the job done. It just won't be this year. And I think we'll see Alabama struggle a little bit, maybe even take a step back from the hopefulness of last year, only to maybe take 2 or 3 steps forward down the road.
I'm not wrong.
John, do you have a second place team that's not Alabama or Georgia?
I'm going to say Vanderbilt would be my choice. I mean, it also helps that Bryce Drew is going to be coming in. He's not going to have Alec Peters like he had at Valparaiso, but he will have a star in Luke Cornett who will help him to get his feet wet in Nashville.
Yeah, I actually like this Vanderbilt team a little bit, maybe not quite as much as you, but the other guy I'm looking at there is Riley LeChance. If he could get himself back straight away as well, I think that they have a chance to make a little bit of noise.
Well, tell us who you like, Chad.
Who do I like? Well, I do agree with Matt on Georgia being my second place team. My third place team, though, is the Florida Gators. I do like this team a lot here. I know Dorian Finney-Smith is gone, but you got Kavon Allen, you got John Igbunu, you got Kenyon Barry, who is coming in over from College of Charleston. You got Keith Stone coming in freshman here. I really think that this Gators team, this is the year that they do step up and get back into the tournament.
Yeah, and Mike White, really super recruiter in a lot of recruiting circles in the South. He was someone that Florida targeted when that job opened. I agree with you. I could see Florida making it to the NCAA tournament this year. But who else do you like, Chad? Again.
I was going to say Florida's going to be like Clemson in one regard from last year. They're going to be starting on the road this year because they're still doing renovations to the O-Dome or the O'Connell Center. It'll be ready just before SEC regular season play around mid-December. So some of their home games are going to be in Jacksonville. Some are going to be in Tampa, and also a few games down in Miami, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'm going to go.
Let's
David's trying to egg me on here to a team that I don't necessarily think is going to be in the tournament, but I think is going to have a real good shot at being right in the bubble discussion at least. And that goes just to the strength of the SEC. That I'm not that certain it's more than a 3-bid league, but we're talking about Bruce Pearl's Auburn Tigers, who I pick every single year, and they turn around and lose 20 games every single year, and I know that. TJ Dunans, they got a couple of freshmen. They got Houston transfer Ronnie Johnson coming in. You got Daniel Purifoy. You got a guy from Bethune-Cookman, LaRon Smith, who actually might be a key contributor there. Again, and I know I've done it. This is now my third year in a row that I've done it with Bruce Pearl. But Bruce Pearl's going to do it sooner or later. God damn it, he will.
Well, here's the thing with Auburn. I mean, you look at their pieces, and same going into last year, and I realized that they were injury prone before things even got started. I think they were starting 2 walk-ons for early in the year. But you would expect them to be good by now. Like he typically makes his teams good a lot sooner than what it's taken at Auburn. So I'm with you on this one again. As to they should be good. It's easy to argue that they will be good, but yet you don't want to make that argument because you've made it before and been wrong. I'm
going to do it again, but Matt, let me turn to you. Is there somebody else that you think has a chance to contend for a tournament bid that we have not yet discussed?
Yeah, one team I like a lot is the Mississippi State Bulldogs. That's a team that's
Stark Vegas.
Right on the verge. Again, return to Quindary Weatherspoon, and that also have a massive recruiting class coming in.
Massive, 80% of the team.
Well, it's a top 10 rated recruiting class. So I agree with Matt, that I like what he's doing there. I think he's a year away, though.
Yeah,
it's probably a year away from the tournament, but I think if in the SEC, it's right for someone to maybe come out of nowhere, and I think you have Quindary Weatherspoon, another kid who's been in the program, didn't do much as a freshman, but it's a big time talent is Eric Holman. 6'10", inside outside. And I think with the other guys, is kind of the inside outside guys, he's got some bruisers coming in like Schneider Harard. in that they'll help complement Holman's game, and I think you see him have a big sophomore year.
I do have another team that I actually think is going to finish second.
Okay, Joby, who's your team? Let's go
And
back to you.
this shows how bad the league is. It's kind of like I don't trust Florida without Dorian Smith. I do think Mississippi State's a year away. I'm not sold on Georgia. Bruce Pearl is continuous. Texas A&M seems like a plug-and-play situation right now for Billy Kennedy, where, yes, he lost some, but he's bringing back guys like Tyler Davis, Gilder. They have the pieces. If Caldwell can be the point guard, and I know this is a Matt thing, and I think Matt would be right if he criticized the pick over it, but Caldwell's got to step up and be a point guard as a freshman. If they can get that distribution, they have the pieces. I think Davis is going to explode this year. They have a real shot, and I think will make the tournament.
Well, Joby, my issue is you lose House and you lose Jones, and I don't know how you make up for that loss.
I think Davis makes up for Jones. I think Jones is a ball hog.
All right, Matt, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll say really quick, Jack. I'd be with you, Joby, except for Caldwell's actually ineligible this year.
Oh my goodness! Sorry, that'd be on me.
Somebody gave you the same notes I had when we were talking about the pick.
They're returning all, but they're returning all 5. Oh, no.
All right, Joby, if you want to take that back, why don't you take that back?
I want to make who's going to distribute the ball without Caldwell. That's the point.
I'm going to make a case for one other team that we haven't mentioned, and that's Arkansas. I actually kind of like this team heading into this year with Dusty Hannes and Moses Kingley, and they have 3 of the 5 highest-rated JUCO transfers coming in this year, with Jalen Barford, Darrell Macon, and Orlando Cook. And yes, I know we're talking about JUCOs at the SEC level, but 3 of the top 5, I think that this team could be the surprise team in the conference this year.
Could be.
Sorry, Matt.
I'd say I think they're a mid-level team, and then who knows? Like, thinking they're a mid-level, the SEC, it really – I'm confident about Kentucky. I'm confident about Georgia. And then after that, I'll buy an argument that if you tell me, hey, Arkansas is in second or third place in January, I wouldn't be stunned.
I wouldn't either.
Well, I want to give John here a chance to talk about his favorite team. And you know where I'm going with this, and Angry Frank. Do the Gamecocks have any shot at being that 3rd or 4th team this year?
Well, it seems to be one of Matt's favorite things to look for, and that's going to be their backcourt, because they're going to have Sindarius Thornwell. They're going to have Dwayne Notice, as well as that P.J. Dozier. The biggest losses from last year are going to be Michael Carrera and Chikevicius. But the other thing we saw toward the end of the last year from South Carolina was after they were snubbed for the NCAA tournament, there were, I think, at least 5 to 6 players that were suspended for making Frank Martin angry, because they found out you won't like him when he's angry.
Yeah. Never want to make that man angry.
Okay. David, we are going into year 2 of the Rick Barnes era at Tennessee. Is this the year that he starts bringing the team up, or is he still trying to clean up the mess?
No, it is not the year. Tennessee is like so far away from good still. If it weren't for Missouri, they'd probably be. I'm not seeing much at all from Tennessee.
Okay. Well, Joby, if it's not Tennessee, is there anybody else here? There's only 3 teams left that we haven't discussed yet. We're going to have to go through them.
Still an Ole Miss? No, just kidding.
Well, let's talk about them. Let's talk about probably the most disappointing team in the nation last year, or one of the most, along with Georgetown, and that's LSU, who was just – if there was something called the exact opposite of team chemistry, they had it. Did they not?
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing is, I think the consensus on this podcast, to give credit to the people on this, was that we foresaw that. I mean, it wasn't like this was, this came out of the blue.
Yeah, I foresaw it. I was right.
Yeah.
Par for the course.
You have everybody said they were going to be good because of one player. Now, they did actually Quarterman, they had other pieces.
Quarterman, Hornsby, Victor, they were all with decent players
Yeah.
last year.
but it just didn't work, and I don't see that. I think it's a coaching issue as much as anything else.
I think it's a coach. Yes, it's a coaching issue. Johnny Jones.
Jones, he's just not the answer.
Oh.
And so, yeah,
Suddenly
LSU
Trent Johnson doesn't look so bad.
No, he does not compared to Johnny Jones. No.
You say Rick Barnes in Tennessee. Thank God for Missouri. I say LSU and Jones. Thank God for Missouri.
Yeah.
Matt, what about Ole Miss? Any chance that Andy Kennedy's team makes any noise, or do they have to get what's his name back here?
They're always solid every year. I'm looking forward for New Mexico transfer Cullen Neal. Seems to
Right.
be the type that Kennedy does pretty good with. And I could see him actually thriving away from the pressure of under his daddy in New Mexico. And I guess Gary Parrish had a great story that was just a giant mess.
Yeah, and what about that? Let's talk about that a little bit, because Cullen Neal transfers away from his father's team. Kind of a strange situation. You almost normally see the opposite of kids transferring to their father's team.
And that was his father basically saying, okay, this is just an untenable situation. The disappointing results in New Mexico and the pressure the kid felt is that, like, a very good player who was probably asked to do a little too much, and then being his coach's son, just the whole politics of it threw it off. But now, fresh start for a kid who's, pretty good shooter, can make plays for others and that. And, hey, bring him to Ole Miss, and, hey, look what happened with Marshall Henderson there. That might be another case like that where, hey, if you tell me Ole Miss, I think they're actually going to probably finish in the top part of the league, and maybe, hey, 7th becomes 3rd or 4th.
And
Well,
speaking of coaches' sons, I don't think we hit on Avery Johnson Jr. either, who actually transferred from A&M, is going to be eligible for Alabama this year for, I think, 3 more years.
Exactly, and that's the type of example of what we normally see.
Yeah.
And Cullen Neal leaves there. You've also got, though, DeAndre Burnett coming over from Miami. You got Sebastian Saez. Yes, Stephon Moody's gone, and that's going to kind of hurt Ole Miss a little bit. But Joby, anything? Do you think Ole Miss could contend for a bid, or do you think they're bottom half of the conference?
Moody leaving. I mean that
Yeah.
he was. It's one of the we talk about certain teams that just revolve around certain players, and that was the case, I think, for Ole Miss with Moody, and they're used to it with Henderson before that, being the emotional roller coaster that he is.
Well, David, one last team to discuss in the Big 12,
Oh, yes. And
they're all yours.
in the Big 12, yes. And there's nothing big about them.
The Big 12, the
Yeah.
SEC, whatever we're doing.
Right. Mizzou. What a successful stint they've had since hiring Frank Haith and moving to the SEC. They have crashed into the mountain, and they continue to fall. I will say this. I realized last year was an absolute tire fire, and I don't think anybody on planet Earth could have done a lot better. I was actually kind of excited for the program when they hired Kim Anderson. I've always thought that Div 2 was sort of one of the most underutilized and untapped resources for good quality coaching. He had a lot of success at Central Missouri. He's not having a lot of success at Missouri yet. The good news is they are eligible for the SEC tournament in the NCAA tournament this year. The postseason or the self-imposed ban is over. The bad news is no one would really notice whether they were or they were not.
Matt, is this Kim Anderson's last year?
Yes, it is. And that I will say,
Well,
it's a mess. But I'll say that he's done. But, like, there is going to be a long line for Kevin Puryear, assuming if he goes to transfer once Anderson leaves. That's one kid who can play in most any major program, save maybe the top 10 or 12.
There is a lot more than just basketball that is a hot mess at Missouri, but that's
it's the
another
whole
topic for another day.
I mean, ending the border war. It's all been downhill from there since Missouri.
And I think that we just got David muted here. But I guess on that note, as David cools down, let's go around through each of you and ask you who your 1 and 2 are in the SEC and how many tournament bids they get. Let me start with you, Matt.
I'll say Kentucky's 1, Georgia's 2, and they sneak a 4th in with A&M in the play-in game.
A&M
And Florida's the other one.
Florida and A&M. Okay, John, who's your field from the SEC?
I'm going to say 4 teams get in here. I'm going to say Kentucky, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and Alabama make it in this year.
Wow, a lot of difference there, and from what my picks are and Matt's. But Joby, let me turn to you.
Well, and Kentucky winning. It's just a mess for 2. Yeah, and it's a mess for 3 through 15 or 14. Let's go with I'll go with Georgia. Yeah, it's tough. A&M, you're the Caldwell thing, but Harrison at least is a JUCO transfer. I will say 3, but 2 would not shock me, a la Pac-12 from a few years ago.
And David, if we'll unmute you here, remember we're not discussing Missouri. We're discussing the top of the SEC.
Well, yeah, Missouri's definitely not at the top unless you turn it upside down. Kentucky for sure. I like Florida and Georgia, and I think they might get a 4th, either Alabama or A&M.
I'm going to agree with David. God, I hate that I'm doing this, but I do like Kentucky to win it, and Georgia and Florida being the 2nd and the 3rd best teams, the other 2 teams in. I don't think they're going to get a 4th, but if they do get a 4th, I'm going to go with the team that I've gone with. Well, I do.
Auburn.
It's either going to be Arkansas or it's going to be Bruce Pearl's Auburn team, if they even get a 4th. And I'm not convinced they get 4 this year. But on that note, on behalf of myself, Chad Sherwood, Matt Zakowski, John Stalika, Joby Forts, and David Griggs, we're going to be back in a few days. We've got our Big Ten and our Pac-12 previews to come next. But thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again real soon.